Hi, everybody. All right, welcome. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes, but first, I invite you to share where you are joining us from using the comment feature. We've got on stage here several different states represented. I'm joining from Abilene, Texas. David and Nadea are joining from North Carolina, and I believe Susan is joining from Mississippi.
Yes, I am.
So far, we've got Concord, California, Cape Cod, Massachusetts,
Oh, wow.
Alabama, Kansas City, Illinois. This is wonderful. It's good to see some familiar names in the chat too. We're really happy that you are joining us again. And if this is your first Jane Austen and Company event, welcome. We're excited to have you. So yeah, we'll get started in just a second. Keep sharing your location. All right, Chicago, North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, Washington, South Carolina. Wonderful. Okay. So, hi, everybody. My name is Eric Bontempo.
Oh, there's someone from Australia, Jillian Dooley. That's good.
Great.
And Montreal. I'm sorry. Here I am.
You're good.
I got excited.
Very good. Boston, Massachusetts, Kansas City. Great. So welcome, everybody. My name is Eric Bontempo. I am one of the co-directors of Jane Austen and Company and the Jane Austen Summer Program. I am joined tonight by my fellow hosts, David Palco and Susan Allen Ford. Our technical director for this series is Nadea Pugh. And we are all tied by a love of Jane Austen, British literary and material history, and in this series, the Bronte sisters. We are excited tonight to continue our spring series, Austen and the Brontes, which aspires to increase public awareness of marginalized histories related to Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, 19th century England, and women's literary traditions more generally. At the outset of tonight's program, we would like to thank the North Carolina Humanities Council for their generous support. The North Carolina Humanities Council is a statewide nonprofit and the state affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities, which connects North Carolinians with cultural experiences that spur dialogue, deepen human connections, and inspire community. Their funding has played a significant role in making this series possible.
As Eric suggested, this is not the first program in the series. In fact, tonight's program is the second event in Austen and the Brontes. Our first event was a live performance of Diana Birchall's play, You Are Passionate, Jane, which depicts a conversation between Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte in the afterlife. And Diana herself played Charlotte, while Siri James played Jane. The performance was great fun, as was the Q&A with Diana and Siri that followed it. So we highly recommend, if you didn't see it, or maybe even if you'd like to see it again, that you check out the recording. It's available on our website, janeaustenandco.org.
And with tonight's event, we are venturing into another new format for Jane Austen and Company. We're going to be participating in a creative writing workshop together. Great fun. Lesley Peterson is going to show us how to write a good rave or rant like Jane Austen or one of the Brontes. Susan, Eric, and I will be participating live with Lesley, and you all can follow along at home or wherever you are. Throughout the workshop, we encourage you to post comments and share your thoughts. We'll also give you an opportunity to share your completed rants at the end, and Lesley will perform them. And then finally, after all that wraps up, we'll have a concluding Q&A with Lesley. It should be great fun. One other thing to note is that tonight's presentation is a wonderful way to practice for our writing contest, which you may have seen was recently announced via email. And so Eric is going to take a moment to talk about the specifics of the contest.
Yeah, so maybe you saw a post on social media about this writing contest. It's going to run from now through April 19th, and we're hoping that everybody joining us tonight for this workshop will participate in this essay contest. And we're also hoping that we'll get your help to spread the word about this contest as well. So there's a link on the screen now where you can learn more about this contest. And I'm also going to share the link in a comment, and that way you can potentially copy and paste that link into your browser. It'll take you to our website. And on the website, you can find the prompts, the essay contest guidelines, information about prizes, and how to submit your essay. Now, some details about this essay contest. It is titled Passionately Writing Austen and the Brontes. And it's a single essay contest, but we are going to have separate age categories. If you are in the 18 and under category, you can submit your essay contest to a special place for 18 and under. If you are 18 and over, if you're over the age of 18, you can submit your essay to a separate category for your essay. Now, here is the basic prompt for both age categories. So Jane Austen and the Brontes sometimes create characters who find themselves in situations that prompt them to write passionate letters, expressing love, distress, or other strong emotions. Some of these include Darcy's voluminous letter to Elizabeth after his first proposal in Pride and Prejudice, Captain Wentworth's letter of half agony, half hope to Anne Elliot, Isabella Linton's brooding letter to Nellie in Wuthering Heights. There's a dispassionate letter that Mr. Rochester writes to Jane Eyre, inviting her to become governess to Adele. And then there is St. John Rivers' ominous letter to Jane at the very end of the novel. So your task in this essay contest is going to be to write your own passionate letter in your own imaginative space, pretending that you are Jane Austen, one of the Bronte sisters, or one of their many characters from their novels. And you can write an emotional letter on any topic of your choice, but it has to be in their style. For example, you may take on the persona of Isabella Thorpe from Wuthering Heights and write a brooding letter about some drama that you had with a college roommate. Again, this contest is open to all ages, and there are separate age categories for this contest. Both winners will be awarded a 50% scholarship to our 2025 Jane Austen summer program that will take place in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And you'll also receive a beautiful gift book set to tie you over because summer 2025 is a long way from now. But we are very excited to see all of your submissions. David, did you want to make a quick comment?
Yeah, Eric, thank you. I was just going to announce that we are anticipating announcing the winners during Laura Rockland's event on April 29th, and there will be a special surprise included in that as well. So stay tuned and look forward to that event if you enter.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so that's the essay contest, and this dovetails so nicely with tonight's talk. And so now we'll have Susan, who will introduce us to our speaker tonight.
Hi, I am so happy to be able to introduce my good friend, Lesley Peterson. Lesley was, until her retirement, professor of English at the University of North Alabama, where she taught Shakespeare and Jane Austen. She's also developed and taught creative writing programs for young people and for seniors. Lesley is the founding editor of the Journal of Juvenilia Studies. She presents very regularly at JASNA AGMs and is one of this year's JASNA traveling lecturers. Lesley has published a number of fascinating essays on Jane Austen in Persuasions and elsewhere. And I want to single out two in particular. One is in Persuasions on line 44.1, which is our most recent issue. So you can just get to that by going to the JASNA website. And it's called Writer's Block, Roadblocks, and Blockheads, Jane Austen's rocky road to acceptable satire of the clergy, a topic that actually might get us thinking about the Brontes clergymen as well as Jane Austen's. And the other one is in Persuasions 43. It was published in 2021, Race and Redirection, Facing Up to Blackface. It's an essay about race in one of the plays that the Austen family performed, and a play that's invoked in Austen's own The Visit. So I really highly recommend these to you. Lesley recently co-edited Austen's Sir Charles Grandison for the Juvenilia Press, and here it is. And she's writing a book on Jane Austen as dramatist. And before Lesley begins, the last thing, our technical director, Nadea, is going to explain how you can send in your responses and your rants throughout the evening.
Thank you, Susan. Hi, everybody. Welcome to YouTube, our streaming platform. If you'd like to leave a comment or ask a question, please use the comment feature on the sidebar. We will be keeping an eye on the comments throughout the workshop, and if she can, Lesley will respond to the comments as we go, but otherwise she'll respond to them during the Q&A after the workshop. You will need to log into your Google or YouTube account to post a comment or to post a writing excerpt or whatever you decide to post over there. But if you do not have a YouTube or Google account, that's okay as well. You can just submit your questions to us via email at info@janeaustenandco.org, and we'll collect questions there as well and ask those for you. Finally, when Lesley offers to have you share your completed rant, please send those to us via email because the comment feature in YouTube has a 200-character limit, and we would hate to cut anybody off. So that email is info@janeaustenandco.org, and I can post that at the bottom throughout so no one forgets. And our speakers love hearing from the audience, so please, please, please share all your thoughts.
Thank you, Nadea. And now, without further ado, here's Lesley Peterson.
Hi, I'm very glad to be here. And I want to thank Susan for that wonderful introduction and Nadea for her technical support and my unflappable co-hosts, Eric and David, for all their incredible support behind the scenes. I hope you can all see the first slide of this PowerPoint, Rave on Jane Austen style, though there will be some Brontes in here as well. The first 5 or 6 slides will be mostly me talking, but after that, the writing workshop part takes over. So do make sure you have some paper handy, as well as something to write with. Feel free to team up with a partner if you've got one. In just 7 simple steps, everyone can end up with an original yet authentic rave in Jane Austen's own style. And I'm focusing mostly on Jane Austen as our model today because her rave is a parody. And we're going to be more successful today if we just decide to have fun. And I guarantee that if you remember to have fun, you can't possibly go wrong. And to prove it, I'll be sharing with you along the way the work that my then 12-year-old grandson, Will Bannister, went through a few years ago. He wrote his own rave, and so you'll be seeing what he came up with step by step. Okay, Jane Austen and the Brontes were deeply familiar with literary characters whose language, along with their reason, falls apart in moments of intense emotion. Think about that for your passionate letters. The literary rave goes back at least as far as Shakespeare, whose heartbroken Ophelia goes mad with grief in Hamlet, and whose tragic old King Lear raves on the heath in a thunderstorm and then howls over the corpse of his daughter Cordelia. These passages will be familiar to many of you, but I'm going to read most of the texts on the screen aloud wherever possible in the interest of accessibility. So here's a bit of a snippet from Ophelia. There's fennel for you and columbines. There's a rue for you, and here's some for me. Oh, you must wear your rue with a difference. There's a daisy. I would give you some violets, but they withered all when my father died. And here is Lear. Howl. I'm not going to try to do this dramatically. Howl, 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 howl. Oh, you are men of stones. Had I your tongues and eyes, I'd use them so that heaven's vault should crack. She's gone forever. Shakespeare has had many imitators, and 18th century literature offers many examples of such moments as these, thanks in part to the rise of the cult of sensibility and then of Romanticism. So by the time Austen and the Brontes came to write their own stories about heroes and heroines who struggled to find words to convey strong and deep feelings, they had many, many writing models to inspire them. Jane Austen and the Brontes were deeply familiar with literary characters whose language, along with their reason, falls apart in moments of intense emotion. Okay. So, as said that already, so we'll just go on. As you can see, Catherine Earnshaw in Wuthering Heights has something in common with Ophelia. That's a turkey's, she murmured to herself, and this is a wild duck's, and this is a pigeon's. Ah, they put pigeons' feathers in the pillows. No wonder I couldn't die. And here is a moorcock's, and this, I should know it among 1,000. It's a lapwing's. Bonny bird, wheeling over our heads in the middle of the moor. It wanted to get to its nest, for the clouds had touched the swells, and it felt rain coming. And Heathcliff has something in common with Lear. He dashed his head against the knotted trunk and, lifting up his eyes, howled, not like a man, but like a savage beast being goaded to death with knives and spears. So for most of this presentation, even though here we can see how brilliantly Emily Bronte adapts her literary models in writing these powerfully moving passages of her own, we will, as I said, focus on Jane Austen's response to the raves she was reading, because her response is more likely to move us to laughter than to tears. You see, by the time Austen came to write her Juvenilia, the rave had been so popular for so long that there were many quite bad examples of it out there. In her mature novels, Austen's characters who feel deeply tend not to rave or rant. Catherine Morland, after being summarily sent home from Northanger Abbey by the imperious and unfeeling General Tilney, first leans quote, back in one corner of the carriage in a violent burst of tears. But once at home, she is able to provide her parents with a coherent explanation of what has happened, after which Austen tells us her only wish is to be silent and alone. For Austen, extravagant language can be as much a sign of insincerity as of strong feeling. But in Love and Friendship, a masterful parody of the sentimental novel that Austen wrote when she was about 14 years old, we learn just what an expert she is in all the rules of raving. The protagonist, Laura, and her best friend, Sophia, have just happened upon a carriage accident in which they find both their husbands, Edward and Augustus, lying on the road, dead. Austen plays the scene for laughs. I'll read aloud the whole passage that you see on the screen here, but for the rest of this workshop, we'll be focusing on the first part, which is a nearly perfect and perfectly hilarious example of the rave. "Talk not to me of phaetons," said I, raving in a frantic, incoherent manner. "Give me a violin. I'll play to him and soothe him in his melancholy hours. Beware, ye gentle nymphs of Cupid's thunderbolts. Avoid the piercing shafts of Jupiter. Look at that grove of firs. I see a leg of mutton. They told me Edward was not dead, but they deceived me. They took him for a cucumber." Thus I continued, wildly exclaiming on my Edward's death. For 2 hours did I rave thus madly, and should not then have left off, as I was not in the least fatigued, had not Sophia, who was just recovered from her swoon, entreated me to consider that night was now approaching and that the damps began to fall. "And whither shall we go," said I, "to shelter us from either?" "To that white cottage," replied she. Note that Laura claims to have raved, quote, in a frantic, incoherent manner. Our project today is to learn what this meant in the 18th century so that we can imitate this manner ourselves. Here we go. But first, a word about the texts I'll be quoting from. The manner of Laura's rave is, of course, a parody of the sort of raving that heroines within the pages of the 18th century novel of sentiment and on the 18th century stage indulged in with regularity. For that reason, it would be impossible for me to identify every one of the texts that Jane Austen targets here. Their name is legion. But if we are to appreciate the conventions that she has mastered and masterfully skewered, and if we are to get some sense of the range of possibilities available to us as we apply those conventions in our own writing, we do need to have a few examples before us. So I've chosen to focus on 4. Ophelia's mad scenes in Shakespeare's Hamlet, which had a tremendous influence on depictions of the distracted heroine in both novels and plays of the 18th century. The Critic by Richard Brinsley Sheridan, a strong influence on several of Jane Austen's youthful writings, and 2 epistolary sentimental novels by Eliza Nugent Bromley, who I'm sure you've never heard of. These novels are very obscure, but they were both significant sources of love and friendship. Bromley's and Shakespeare's mad scenes are meant to be taken seriously, but in Sheridan's The Critic, Austen found an exemplary parody of the genre. I will be sharing examples of 18th century ravings from Sheridan and Bromley with you as we go along. I hope you will find them entertaining and inspiring. And now the workshop begins. Preparing for step 1. Right, and there are only 7, don't panic. And the 7th step is just a little editing. Writing an effective mad scene in an epistolary novel isn't easy, as Jane Austen knew. It took Bromley some time to work this out. If we compare her first and second novels, we find that Bromley's raves become increasingly competent and complex over the course of these 2 works. In other words, her novels offered Jane Austen the opportunity to witness the writing development of another young author as she learned how to write an effective rave. Here is Bromley's first true rave, which we find towards the end of her first novel, Laura and Augustus. As Juliet McMaster has pointed out, Austen uses both of these names, Laura and Augustus, in Love and Friendship. Austen's heroine is named Laura, and the husband of Laura's friend, Sophia, is named Augustus. So that makes this novel worth looking at. This rave is still pretty basic, but all the required ingredients are here. "Oh," cries the frantic creature, "my Augustus, my best, my only love. Wait, a moment longer, wait, and thy faithful Laura will accompany thee. Oh, God, he hears me not. Cold and dead. Ah, look, look, yonder where he goes. See how he smiles. He beckons me. Hark," cries she, holding up her finger. "Hark, again, do you not hear the music of the spheres? See how he rides on yonder cloud. How beautiful he looks. I come, Augustus. Thy Laura comes." Most obvious, perhaps, are the dashes and interjections. Oh, ah. So that is the first step in our writing process. The truth is, if you sprinkle lots of dashes and a fair number of O's and ahs in with its content, your own rave will bear quite the air of authenticity. On this slide, I've marked in red the dashes and interjections as they appear in the raves of both Laura's, Bromley's, and Austen's. Just give you a few seconds to look at them. You've noticed that Austen doesn't have any interjections, but her dashes outnumber Bromley's. But that's not all. Here, I've also marked the imperatives or commands, which the pathologically self-confident Laura of Jane Austen excels at. This time, in dark purple. These commands can have much the same effect as interjections, especially when they are abrupt, one-word sentences. And I'm just going to read the imperatives here. Wait, wait, look, hark, hark, see, talk not to me, give me, beware, avoid, look. Lots of fun. An abrupt question that breaks up the text can work much like an interjection. So we're still preparing for step 1. Here is Tilburina's Rave from Act 3 of Sheridan's The Critic. The character Puff, there's a little backstory. Puff, who is the author of a very bad tragedy, attends, along with 3 of his friends, the rehearsal of this tragedy in which his heroine, Tilburina, who is an Ophelia wannabe, goes mad after seeing the corpse of her lover, Whiskerandos, and then exits to throw herself into the sea. Note that this rave is written in somewhat ragged blank verse. I've marked the questions in dark purple. Who says a whale's a bird? Did you call, my love? Okay, it's your turn. Step 1. Why don't you go ahead, grab a piece of paper, and make your first list. Choose 4 or 5 interjections, questions, or imperatives that you plan to use in your own original rave, along with some dashes, which you'll add in later. You could choose all of them from the list you see on the slide. All of these come from our models. But if you're inspired to add one of your own that you don't see here, feel free. So just jot down 4 or 5 of these to make your own list. I'll give you some seconds to do that. Here is my grandson Will's list. Does anybody want to share theirs? Eric, David, somebody in the comments? No? Oh, alas, oh ho, la. Did you call?
I
Oh.
chose alas a day, oh, nay, and howl.
Howl. Fantastic. Oh, this is, I'm having so much fun. Okay.
I tried me, go, la, and who says?
Who says? That's great. Just if you don't want to share what you've done, just put this important list aside for a bit while we gather up the rest of the ingredients we need to cook up our raves. Okay.
Oh, we're starting to get a lot in from the comments. We've got God, ah, look, indeed, ah.
Ooh.
And heavens, alas, dear God, pray you.
Oh.
Alas, ah me, see, indeed.
I'm so inspired. I just can't wait to see where this goes. Okay. Before we go on to step 2, let's just take a break to look here at Bromley's earliest attempt at a rave. It's not very successful. We find no dashes and only one interjection. Just a lot of questions, really. Another flaw, something we'll come back to, is that Eliza only addresses one person throughout, Laura, the person she's writing to. And this is Eliza's rave. Why did I quit the calm retirement of a cloister, the innocent conversation of vestals, to mix in the gay and noisy world, a world made up of sorrow, pain, and disappointment? Why did not one grave receive the wretched child with her unfortunate parent? Eliza's mother died in childbirth. Why was I left to contend with the storms of adverse fate? Alas, I rave. We might not even have known that she was raving if she hadn't told us in the last sentence. All in all, Eliza is awfully self-aware for someone who has lost her reason. Still, this is a good example of the kind of dramatic situation you might consider for your own creation. A rave needs a reason. Here, Eliza, raised in a convent and now back in another convent as a nun, is writing a letter to Bromley's heroine, Laura. Eliza is about to describe her awful discovery years previously, that the man she had just married was in fact her half-brother. Yes. Now you need to make some decisions about your own heroine. And as we can see from Bromley, anything goes. Steps 2, 3, and 4 will help you come up with a dramatic situation for your rave. Time to grab that piece of paper again. Step 2 is to give your heroine a name, and also to give a name and identity to the person she has lost. Here are some options, all taken from our models. I'll give you some seconds to look these over. I forgot to add Tilburina and Whiskerandos to those lists. Here's Will's characters. Eleanor is his heroine, and she has lost her husband, whose name is Truck. Truck kind of reminds me of Heathcliff. You know, in his own way, his name tells us that he's a force of nature, or a machine or something. For an extra layer of challenge, consider giving your heroine a name that combines the name of a place, for instance, Tilbury, with a feminine suffix. Sheridan had Tilburina. Maybe your heroine is Houstonia or Bostonetta. Or give your hero a name that combines a physical features, such as whiskers, with a masculine suffix. Sheridan has Whiskerandos. I might choose Biceptron. So I'm going to give you some time to decide. You just need 2 names and a basic relationship. And feel free to share what you come up with in our chat.
So if I'm from Abilene, Texas, then I could name my heroine Abilenia.
Oh, sure. Yes, or Abilenetta or Abilini. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Have I given you enough time? Okay. David's dying to share his.
I don't know if that's true, but I'm going with Rollinetta, who has lost her dog Beowulf.
Oh boy. My heart breaks for them both. Anybody else?
I also went with a lost dog, which is really ironic. David and I did not plan this. For me, it's Abilenia's dog, Percy, has run away from her.
Oh, Percy. What an Austenian name to choose. Percy. Oh, the noble Percy. Anybody else?
We have someone whose Fanny has lost her husband, Roland, in a grievous carriage accident.
Oh, how very 18th century. Oh, lovely.
Serenity has lost her fiancé, Jonathan.
Oh, Serenity. So inspiring. The wonderful thing, and I thank everybody who's sharing, because I think it gives everybody else permission to take risks and just do anything, because you really can't do this wrong. Okay. On to step 3. What is their relationship and how did she lose him? You need to decide these things. We're still planning. We're not writing the rave yet. I'm not going to read this chart to you, but it's a summary of the situations we find in our models, including Austen. So please just take a moment to look them over if you can, for inspiration and, of course, amusement.
While people are doing that, we have a few more coming in. We have Bryn lost her brother, Delaney.
Ooh.
We have Greenvillina has lost love of her life, Columbus. And Delania has lost her love, Hamstrung, in an ice skating.
I like that.
Oh, and it's all right. Jane lost her father, who ran off to Gretna Green with a housemaid.
As one does.
Oh, more coming in, more coming in. Mrs. Bennet has lost her servant, Mr. Chamberlain. As she raves on, she refers to him as Mr. Chamberpot.
Oh, I love that.
Freudian slip there.
Yeah.
Wonderful. These are so much fun. Really inspiring. Okay. Perhaps you'll agree with me that there isn't much difference between the serious examples and the parodies. So in just a minute, I'm going to give you a minute of silence so you can sketch out a couple of details about your heroine's relationship to her beloved and how she lost him. But first, here's what Will came up with. Truck, Eleanor's husband and co-worker, has been fired by their boss, Mr. Honda Civic. Truck drove his car into a lake and died. So that's the backstory there. Yeah. So now it's your turn for step 3. Don't worry about coming up with the perfect idea. Just trust the process and have fun. What is their relationship and how did she lose him? Please consider sharing your work in the chat or by email.
So I've got one, I think. Susanetta has lost a potential contributor whose name is Austenuto, and he died of writer's block.
That does sound painful.
Oh, yes, I should explore that.
So Raleigh Netta lost her dog Beowulf at the Bark Park, where he found a new owner who seemed like a better fit and decided to go home with her.
Oh, traitor.
Yes.
He does not live up to his name. That's all I can say.
So my dramatic situation is Percy, Abelinia's dog, caught sight of a rival cat across the street and decides he must protect Abelinia at all costs from this dangerous threat. Percy sprung from Abelinia's arms, jumped out the open window, and took off across the street, never to be seen again. He got distracted by a squirrel and wandered.
Okay.
This is a very complicated plot, Eric.
Bark, Eric.
That just adds to the fun. Okay.
So I'm seeing Sola Desiree has lost her horse Ophelia while fording a stream. Pitsina lost her secret lover Abdomando to a gusty wind.
I think we're not. Did they live in Kansas by any chance?
Yeah, Floridia lost her beloved husband Myrrh when he mistook a poisoned mushroom for a moral.
Oh.
Here's one. Emmeline lost her mad brother Gurney to a case of the sniffles.
Oh. These are fantastic. Just the collective brilliance here is just thrilling. All right. With step 3 finished, you're almost ready to start writing the actual content of your heroine's rave. You've probably already got quite a few good ideas for what she might say to her absent beloved or about him. You just need to decide where she is now and who hears her rave. In other words, place and audience. On the stage, every rave automatically has an audience, people sitting in the theater. In many novels, the audience is a witness who later tells the reader about the rave. In Wuthering Heights, Lockwood hears about Catherine's and Heathcliff's raves because Nellie Dean witnessed them and tells him about what she saw and heard. The passage I show on the left is an excerpt from Bromley's Longest Rave, a real tour de force of its kind, found in her second novel, Sir Charles Bentinck. The dramatic situation here, you're going to love this, is that our heroine Louisa is deranged from the shock of her recent abduction and subsequent illness. Her abductor, Woolerton, is the witness. He is writing a letter to a friend in which he recounts the scene. She, putting her fingers to her lips, cried, "Hark! Dost see, Sir Charles, that pretty flutterer? Oh, poor bird! Nay, do not beat thy tender breast thus." "Sweet Louisa," replied I, tenderly pressing her hand. "Sweet Louisa," re-echoed the beauteous mourner. "Ah me! And am I still your sweet Louisa? But come, come, my love, let's haste away." In Love and Friendship, Jane Austen's Laura, sitting comfortably at home, tells the story of her own mad scene in a letter written years after the event. She is her own witness. She wants her reader to believe that she genuinely raved, and yet that she can recall every word she said with total accuracy years later. This absurdity, of course, is part of the joke. But if you're taking it seriously, the person who raves is not the witness. Here are some examples from our models. We won't start writing step 4 quite yet, but please take a moment to review these examples for inspiration or amusement. I can hear the gears in people's brains turning, so we're going to move right on to the next slide. Step 4, place, audience, witnesses, and imaginary addressees. You see, for your heroine to really sound mad, at least one of the people she speaks to should be absent or imaginary. This is just one more thing that the nun Eliza's disappointing rave, which we saw earlier, does not include. In Louisa's rave, which you just heard, her abductor Woolerton is the audience and the witness, but he is not the addressee. Louisa does not speak to him at all. Instead, she addresses the man she loves, who is absent. And she also addresses imaginary birds. Similarly, Catherine and Heathcliff rave in front of Nellie Dean, but they are not really talking to her. So take a second to look over the examples of imaginary addressees that I show here at the bottom of the slide. Birds are very popular. Now it's time to do step 4 in your planning notes. Still just jotting point form, but take a minute to decide your answers to these questions. Where is your heroine raving? Who is listening to her, her witness in other words? And whom might she be talking to who isn't there? Have some fun with this. Your heroine should definitely talk to her absent beloved, but you might also want to give her 1 or 2 other imaginary addressees. That's up to you. I'll give you a minute now to do step 4. Take your time. Ready to move on, co-hosts, or do you need a little more time? Yeah, ready to move on? Great. All right. Now we're going to combine steps 2, 3, and 4 to come up with your dramatic situation. And here is what Will came up with. Truck, Eleanor's husband and co-worker, has been fired by their boss, Mr. Honda Civic. Truck drove his car into a lake and died, and now in front of Mr. Civic, her witness, Eleanor raves in the parking lot of the car dealership he owns. Would anybody like to share their dramatic situation?
Yeah, I can go while folks are typing up their responses in the comments section. So here's my dramatic situation. So Abilenia's dog has run away. It's chasing a cat. It's sprung out the window, and Abilenia is absolutely distraught by this circumstance. So in front of her husband, who also loves this dog, but maybe plays second fiddle to the dog a little bit, Abilenia raves. And she's holding one of Percy's favorite chew toys.
Oh.
And she's addressing is it okay to address an inanimate object instead
Absolutely. Yeah, it's brilliant.
That adds to the rave a little bit if it's an inanimate object.
Yes, if she can't tell what's alive and what isn't.
Right.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yay. Thank you, Eric. Anybody else?
So I'm still working through mine, but I think what's happened is, Beowulf went away with this other new owner, and Ralinetta is gone to the pet shop, the dog store, the pet food store, Pet People, or something like that, where she typically buys all of the treats and toys for Beowulf. And she's become friends with the owner because she's spent so much money there over the years and considers the owner a close friend, and is ranting and raving to the owner about how a spoiled dog like Beowulf could abandon her.
Wonderful.
And Susanetta, at 1 a.m. the night before her deadline, sitting at a desk when she discovers that Ostenuto has died of writer's block, and she raves to the only beings around, her MacBook Air and Microsoft Word.
They are the gods of the 21st century, aren't they?
Here's one from an audience participant. Bryn lost her brother Delaney in marriage to women of poor society. She's written a letter to her best friend Felicia.
Oh, great. Great. Very 18th century, the letter. Wonderful. Okay.
And here's one involving pirates, I think. Philomena is on the shore looking out to sea, speaking to her beloved Samson, who was lost at sea after having been captured by pirates. She's bewailing her loss to the ocean and a dear friend.
Oh, how dramatic.
We also have Carolina Peartree lost her beloved fiance, Edward Scissors, in a pruning accident. She raves in the courtyard with her cousin, Georgiana Shrubs, by her side.
Do I detect a theme here? Oh, that's wonderful. I hope to hear even more as we go on.
Can we do one more?
Yes, absolutely. Let's do one more.
Aaron has a situation. So it says, God, look at her low cut bosom and high ankle skirt. This lady is no lady. Indeed, I think she must be from deep in the country.
Oh, hang on to that, Aaron, because you started writing your rave already.
Oh, right.
Yes. Right. That's wonderful. Okay. Why step 4 matters. Want to talk about planning for the swerve. you've got your multiple addressees planned out, or you've got some ideas, you know, talking to the absent dog, talking to the squeeze toy, talking to the air, talking to the computer gods. You are almost ready to produce a convincingly distracted rave.
Mhm.
In fact, you could completely skip step 5 and still be successful. And this is because once we got to step 4, you're ready to convey madness in one of the most effective ways, which is by having your heroine's attention suddenly swerve from one thing to another, or from one addressee to another. Those dashes and interjections you came up with in step 1 will be useful for marking your swerves. And your step 4 planning will also help you to achieve this. Perhaps your heroine is looking in one direction and then suddenly looks somewhere else, like Tilburina, who in this passage that I've got on the slide here, her attention swerves from the moon as it rises above her in the first line to an imaginary squirrel somewhere in front of her in the second. Squirrels are a theme here. So the wind whistles, the moon rises. See, they have killed my squirrel in his cage. Is this a grasshopper? Ha! No, it is my whiskerandos, and so on. Okay. Perhaps your heroine is addressing one person and then suddenly addresses someone else. As you can see here, Bromley's Laura jumps back and forth between addressing her dead Augustus and addressing her audience, the female confidant who was in the room with her. Right? So wait, a moment longer, wait, and thy faithful Laura will accompany thee. That is spoken to the ghost of her recently dead husband. And then she speaks to the person beside her. Oh God, he hears me not. And so on. And then she addresses him again at the end. I come, Augustus, thy Laura comes. Jane Austen's Laura similarly jumps back and forth between uttering commands to Sophia, talk not to me of Phaetons, addressing herself to some imaginary gentle nymphs, and describing to Sophia what she sees in the landscape. Look at that grove of firs. So lots of swerves. Since Sheridan's Tilburina is meant to be the creation of an unskilled playwright, it is appropriate that we cannot always be sure whom she is addressing, whether the play's audience or the female confidant who shares the stage with her or some imaginary adversary. But there is a clearly marked swerve here between the 5th line and the 7th, and again between the 7th line and the 8th, where she jumps from talking about whiskerandos, I know you have him in your pocket, to talking to him. Ha! Did you call, my love? And then back to talking about him again. He's here. He's there. So you'll be swerving with the best of them in just a couple more minutes. But first, I think we can handle step 5. So let's move on to that. Preparing for step 5. This is putting the icing on the cake or putting the spice in the ginger cookies or whatever it is you're making here. A basic rave doesn't need any of these features, but images of birds, traps, maidens, water, and music can all be found in our examples, including Hamlet and Wuthering Heights. So to illustrate, here's another excerpt from that same very long rave of Louisa's in Sir Charles Bentinck. And I've highlighted in red the images that match up with this checklist. And as you can see, this one short passage ticks all the boxes. Go, quickly, repeated she. Why, to yonder brook. Once upon a time, a maiden fair and young, like a certain person I know, but hush, I won't tell indeed, saw from a window a cage to which hung many lime twigs, to draw unwary birds within the cage. A blackbird sat to act the tempter's part, ha, 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 when, strange to say, a sparrow, silly fool, here hopped upon the snare. Alas a day, sweet bird, the maid returned. But hold, rising briskly on her couch, I will set it to music. and then, playing her pillow as if seated before the harpsichord, began singing in the most melancholy notes these lines. So I'll just give you a few seconds to soak up all these wonderful, spicy, sweet images. Almost time to select your own images. Once you've done that, you'll be really ready to write or really ready to rave. So take a second now to look over the examples I offer you to choose from here. They all come from our models. So you can just jot down another short list. You don't need all of them. So maybe pick 2 or 3. And I'm also repeating Jane Austen's Rave on the left, just because we haven't seen it for a while. And also because one way we can tell that hers is a parody is the comparative lack of imagery conveying innocence. Instead, you just might find a phallic symbol or 2. Piercing shafts of Jupiter, anyone? So it's time to choose your images. I'll give you a minute for that now. And if you find this exercise easy, there are a couple of challenges at the bottom of the screen that you might want to try. How about a Shakespeare illusion, for instance? And don't forget to share.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I'm going to tie it all together, but I want to mention an owl,
Uh-huh.
nest, a flower, and tears in my rave.
Ooh.
And maybe she hears whistling wind as she is thinking about her lost dog.
Mm. And if you can't tie them all together, all the better. The more,
Right.
the more coherent, the better, right? Incoherent, the better.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah, I'm still working through mine as well, but I think there will be a reference to a water bowl, which
Oh,
seems
water
very
bowl.
appropriate. I think
Mhm.
squirrels are good. I'm thinking my Shakespearean allusion might be, to whom should I complain? Isabella from Measure.
Ooh.
That seems very fitting.
To whom should I complain? Yes.
Mhm.
Oh. Or out, damn spot.
Oh, yes, that's also very dog-oriented. I
I
like
might
it.
steal that one.
Yep.
Damned Percy.
I'm going to use starlings, I think, because they seem sinister, but I don't know how yet. That was the bird that struck me
That's
as
great.
good for a brave.
Starlings. Oh, yes. Oh, dark cloud of starlings. Okay. Here are the images that Will chose. His bird or small animal is Toad. Toad is stuck in a snare. And for innocence, he chose the lyrics to a song from a TV show called Thomas and Friends, about trains that he loved when he was 4.
Nice.
He even came up with a Shakespearean allusion, and I was pretty impressed by that, because Shakespeare is something he's more likely to tolerate than to seek out. Anybody else?
So incorporating a Shakespeare allusion adds to the incoherence because it's like, why are we talking about Shakespeare? Right?
Well,
It's just the first thing that comes to mind in a rave.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. These are literary raves after all. It's it's creating the illusion. Yeah. Yeah. You have to not only have to show that your audience that your heroine is mad, but also that that she's mad in the proper Shakespearean style, and you've done your homework. So yes.
There's a good one here by Tracy Boyle. The birds are gone. There is no sweet twittering. I shall never see the sun. Oh, stop that rain. What is that tapping? It's John. I can hear his footsteps.
Oh,
He's here coming for me, is he not? Listen.
Oh, shades of Wuthering Heights. You almost hear
Yeah.
Kathy at the window, right? Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And yet so original too. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. It's time for step 6. You're nearly done. Here are a number of invitations for you to consider. Writing prompts, 16 in total. I'll just read the first few. Lament your beloved's absence or loss. Ask a self-pitying question. Describe a small trapped animal as pathetically as you can. Describe your dead beloved or absent beloved as if you were looking at him now, and so on. So your task is to choose I recommend 5 to 7. 5 to 7 is kind of a magic range of these 16, and just write one sentence, really, one line or two in response to each of those 5 to 7 prompts. Just pick whichever one of them strikes sparks. So keep in mind the dramatic situation that you've created. And remember, and you can write your responses in any order you like. So you can start at the bottom, jump to the middle, and so on. And as long as you're having fun, you can't do this wrong. And on the left-hand side are some reminders for you to keep in mind as you write. And of course, there's also a challenge if you want to try a little, if you want to level up. And I'm going to give you some time now to choose 5 to 7 prompts and write, and I will stop talking so you can think.
And Lesley, is it okay if participants post like one sentence at a time in the comments? Because of the character limit, they probably won't be able to do more than
That's a great idea. If they wanted to post them all, it would have to be in an email, wouldn't it?
Right.
Yes. No, that's a great idea. And that sets the stakes lower as well, which is always nice.
Yeah.
You know that a wise man once said that writer's block means your standards are too high. So if you can't think of anything to write, just lower your standards.
That's right.
How about our urgent desire to be somewhere else?
Writer's block often evokes that in me.
Well, it's your third to the last
Yes. Yes.
suggestion. So
yes.
I'm just picking it up. That's all.
Okay. Oh, okay, great. That one struck sparks for you. I'm glad.
Here's one sentence that I came up with. This is responding to the prompt, ask a self-pitying question. Abelinia starting her rave. Did you call my most beloved Percy my more than pet, my companion? Hearing what she thinks is her long lost dog coming.
It's a nice alliteration in there too, by the way, Eric.
Yeah, I do what I can. Yeah.
Anybody else? A fragment? Oh, here's something in comments from Neha Patel in the email. Heavens, Percival dear, my beloved husband, however shall I, the voluptuous Fanny Fairbottom, overcome the indignities of not receiving an invitation to the Knightleys' ball at which my husband and I would have been the toast of the temps, had he not been cold in his grave from an ungodly case of the pox? I know not what he must be suffering. The serpentine Knightleys must think they have bested me with this insufferable insult, but I am no sorrowful sparrow suffering alone in my withering cage. I shall have my time in the limelight, even if I must seize it.
Love it. That was awesome.
Wow. That gets me worked up. His withering cage. Whew. Withering heights. Anybody else?
I have another sentence. It looks like we have some people that are sending emails as well, and we'll get those pulled up shortly.
Great.
Where did that go? Hang on. Let's see. So I chose the prompt, look at something that only you can see and describe it. So this is when my heroine is addressing an inanimate object.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to mention one of the images that I picked was an owl nest. So I was like, how am I going to tie this all together in a sentence? So this chew toy, afraid owl. So it's a chew toy of an afraid owl drenched in my tears was the last thing you, my pet, touched before leaping out of my arms forever.
Oh my. Very good. Well, I'm going to go on to step 7. We can come back to look at this slide.
You mean there's more?
Okay. Step 7 is just tidying it up.
Okay, good.
And a little quick editing.
Right.
So once you've finished writing your 5 to 7 fragments, read them over. And this image is very hard to see, but this is Will's step 6. And then what he did is he read them over and he renumbered them. So he decided to start, this is now number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just, maybe you want to put them in a different order from how you wrote them.
Okay.
Oops. And make any final adjustments that you might like to make. Sprinkle in a few extra interjections and the like from step 1. Right. Throw in another alas, alack, oh, hark. Throw in some more dashes. And here is Will's final comment, final version. Look, Truck is out. He leaves. Why has he been fired? Ah me, Truck, Truck, thou art on thy way to heaven. In time I shall meet you, I shall bring Toad. Oh, Truck, wherefore art thou, Truck? But no, the only thing I had going good in my life, Toad is stuck. Why me, God? Look at Toad in snare. God, he can't jump freely. Why? Stuck in that snare. Honda, thou hast ruined my life, as I shall not be living by tomorrow. I hear a train come. Toad, it shall help us. Truck shall be waiting for us by now. Da-dum, da-dum. That sound I remember from when I was a child, I remember. Please let me be with Truck. They're 2, they're 4, they're 6, they're 8, shunting trucks and hauling freight.
All right, that is haunting.
And I'll give people a little time to.
So should we send these? Is that the idea now?
I think it would be great. Does anybody want to go back and look at those prompts again?
I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're going to look at our email and see if we've gotten any rants or raves sent.
Great.
Email.
Okay.
Then I'll
And
just go
it's-
on to my final slide, and I'm not going to, or maybe I'm not. There it is. So I have one more sample for you if you're interested. One of my former students at University of North Alabama wrote a Southern version about Bluebeard or Nashbeard and Maybelle and Loretta. And there's a bibliography. So that is the end of my formal presentation. And I'm happy now to hear, see, read, perform if I must, people's work or to take questions.
How did you come up with this idea? I sent mine in, so, but
Oh, how
did you come up with this?
I'm a big fan of imitation. I think one of the best ways to really get inside a text and understand how it works is to imitate it. So it's something that I used to do in the classroom, and something that I could see Jane Austen doing in Love and Friendship, because she is so clearly, I mean, parody is imitation.
Mhm.
It's equal parts love and mockery.
It's interesting trying to do it because, I mean, you're right. You realize the structure and you get some ideas that are just pure copying.
Mm-hmm.
Then also your mind starts to work too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as well as Jane Austen's mind.
Well,
But it's interesting the way it stretches you.
mm-hmm. Would I see your rave here, Susan? Do you want me to perform it, or would you like
I think it would sound better coming in a Canadian accent. So,
a Canadian accent? You've got it. All right. Oh, Austenuto, your absent essay and your untimely death. Too late, too late. Hark, was that the clock? 1 a.m. and I, Susanetta, sit here desolate. What? Writer's block? Did I cause your death? Were you killed by my red pen? Sorry, I have to scroll up. Were you killed by my red pen, excising adjectives and adverbs? Did you bleed red ink? Out, out, damn spot. Oh, stacks of paper. Surely you contain a workable essay. Oh, MacBook Air, do you see the starling pecking at commas? Alas a day, what will the morrow bring? Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, and Eric, do I get to read yours as well, or are you willing to perform it?
I can perform my rave. I think this will be fun. I enjoyed writing this. So here goes. This is Abelinia speaking. Did you call, my most beloved Percy, my more than pet, my companion? Or is that the whistling wind I hear from the window?
Oh.
No. As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods. They
Ooh.
kill us for sport. This chew toy, a frayed owl drenched in my tears, was the last thing that you, my pet, touched before leaping out of my arms forever. Alas, the owl returns to its nest, hooting in its home. How canst thou be so cute, and yet so directionally clueless? Did you at least vanquish your foe, that accursed cat, or did the squirrel entice you from my arms forever? Oh ho, husband, your love and kind attention will now have to make recompense. Assemble a search team and maybe fetch me Starbucks upon your return to soothe my nerves.
Oh, I mean, they're both so perfect and they're both so completely different. Nobody but you, Susan, could have written that rave. Nobody but you, Eric, could have written that rave. And I love that, as you said, Susan, that the mind gets involved and you can't help being creative even within this structure. It's these are just fantastic.
So I will lower the bar for everyone in the audience.
That's an important role that somebody has to play, David.
Someone's got to do it. So
Yeah.
I will fulfill that role.
Mhm.
I hand wrote mine, so I will read it myself. You may know some similarities with Eric, ironically. Okay. Oh, alas a day, my beloved Beowulf, how couldst thou leave your devoted Raleighnetta? Nay, my Wolfie, why? Milk bones, I bought these for thee. But oh, my, this water bowl, so merry, so cheery, how full, like my life once was. Oh, nymphs, squeaky toys, whilst I cry, you squeak, mock me. Out, damn dog. But your beauty invades my vision. Your soft fur, thorns of roses. Howl!
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, and again, so different, so different. You're seeing similarities, but I'm really seeing originality in that. That's wonderful. And using the word howl in a piece about a dog just gives this word a whole new set of associations. You've taken that cliche and you've made it fresh, and that's really wonderful.
We have a very interesting comment from Jillian Dooley, which I just posted. Hi, Lesley. It strikes me how many songs from the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries are actually raves. I'm singing them all the time, and there are many in Jane's music collection, too.
Oh, my goodness. Jillian.
That is so fascinating.
That is fascinating. Oh. Well, Jillian, I was delighted to hear that you were joining us, but now I'm even more delighted because you have stretched my brain in a really fantastic way. Do you care to sing any of them for us now? No, I guess you can't, but yeah. Oh, that's she was surrounded by examples, good, bad, and indifferent of this.
Well, I suppose it's operatic too, isn't it?
Oh, I guess so.
When you think about it, I mean, aren't arias raves often?
Yes. Yes, I guess they are.
I hadn't really thought about it before, but I mean, maybe they're a little more coherent, but
a little more coherent, but they're certainly larger than life. I mean, they're big, they're intense. You don't hold back in an aria.
That's a really interesting connection. I hadn't thought about that.
That's really. Anybody else? Did anybody else send a rave or a bit of a rave in an email?
Or are they sending them or saving them for the contest?
Ooh. Or maybe they want to revise them and tweak them, add a few more dashes, add a few more interjections.
And Betty Parker Ellis says, how about scripts for silent movies? They sounded like raves too.
Oh my goodness. And I may be just displaying my ignorance here, but I wonder if there's a through line from these novels of sentiment to melodrama. Melodrama would keep this tradition alive for sure.
It's striking because those frantic, incoherent parts from Jane Austen's novels or the Bronte's novels like Wuthering Heights, like I would read them and I would be like, this is frantic and incoherent, and I would kind of gloss over them and just think it's supposed to be frantic, and there's always an attempt by my brain to try to make the incoherency coherent. I like how this workshop doesn't necessarily try to do that. It's like, let's lean into the incoherency of these speeches, and by doing that, we can appreciate them and understand and ironically understand them better that way. I really appreciated this teaches so well in classrooms, and I think this is a really great exercise.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of fun to do. I never know what people are going to come up with, but it's always just so fascinating. And I think you put that really well, Eric, about the incoherence becomes the pattern. I mean, if you're looking for structure or pattern or what coherence, what kind of sense does this make? And it's also making sense in the way that it announces its affiliation with a tradition. And in some ways, these raves are an opportunity to kind of advertise your street cred. I read Shakespeare. I can do Ophelia.
Susan, you mentioned, or Lesley, you mentioned that. I'm curious because your example started with Shakespeare, with Ophelia and with Lear. Was Shakespeare's model original? Like, is that, or what was he basing it off of? Do you think of older models?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, a rave from Judith. I'll make this. There's nothing new under the sun, right? I mean, Shakespeare is basing his models on human nature, but he's also, I mean, there is raving in Marlowe. There's raving in I think there's raving in Gorboduc, I think. Just thinking of some of the earlier plays. The Spanish tragedy.
That's what I was thinking.
Spanish tragedy.
Yeah.
That's definitely what I was thinking. Yeah.
So here's a note from, there's a question from Lori Mulligan Davis.
I can answer Lori's question real quick.
Okay.
And then we got some raves to read, and then we're getting near to time. So the essay contest that I mentioned at the beginning, you have the option for your letter in the style of Jane Austen or the Brontes, you could submit a letter that is a rave, but the contest is not limited to raves only. So there are a lot of different kinds of letter styles that we get from these women novelists, and you can choose any style, not just the rave. But boy, this would be a fun style to submit for your essay. So do consider taking what you've learned in this workshop and submitting that for your essay submission.
Yes. I think an Austen style rave might be a very insincere one. I can imagine Lucy Steele writing a letter in the form of a rave and not meaning a single word of it.
Oh, wow, what a great idea.
Yeah. But here's something from Judith Umbach with a nice, what fun to learn how to rave with effect. Thank you. This is her contribution. Oh, Gary, how young you were when I lost you. Come home. No, you are too young. Will you be eternally too young? Riley, catch me as I fall. What is the joy of this birthday lunch if Gary is not with me, with his family? Where did my parents go? They couldn't stay and face my questions. Did they cause our house to burn to the ground? Ashes. Gary cannot be ashes. He was such a pretty baby. Babies are always cute. Riley, do you know? He must be somewhere. Why will no one tell me?
Oh my gosh.
I love that stage direction. Riley, catch me as I fall. That's very dramatic. Like the script tells us, what the actors have to do. That's a wonderful moment. Great.
And I wanted to make sure we get Erin's rave. I'm going to post that in the chat.
Okay. And here's one from Jane Axelrod. It's a short one. I'll read it quickly. Oh, gotta love those O's, and they're so Shakespearean. Oh, will my Samson ne'er return? He is the west, and Samson is the moon. I see him afar on the moonlit shore. Hark, are those his sweet dulcet tones I hear? Or is it those of pirates who stolen away? It is a snare and a delusion that I see. Or is it a seagull that is flitting by my eyes? Going from the symbolism to the object instead of the other way around is a wonderful reversal of that rhetorical strategy. Okay, and this is a letter to somebody's best friend, Felicia. Dear Felicia, my brother Delaney is lost. He has fallen from society, though I would have rather he had fallen off a cliff. Ha! Did you see her brazen disregard for propriety? God, look at her low-cut bosom and high ankle skirt. This lady is no lady. Indeed, I think she must be from deep in the country. God, to be so indecent in society, I would be appalled to be known as connected to her family. My new bonnet is simply not enough to overcome her terrible something. Wow. That I've never thought of a catty rave before, but I think we've heard one. That was wonderful.
Yeah,
That was from
great.
Erin
That's
Pine.
great.
Yeah.
Kind of a Mrs. Elton rave.
Yes, yes, yes. Uh-huh.
There are two interesting comments here. Laura Rockland says, I would say Electra certainly has some raves in Sophocles' play.
Yes, indeed.
And Jillian Dooley is going to be giving a concert at the JASNA AGM, and she says she has a feeling that her concert might be full of raves, as they are mainly theater songs, and she'll think about it.
Well, and this is just giving me a whole new insight into the into the frequency of references to music in these raves that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes. Wow. This has been so much fun. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lesley, for leading us through this creative writing workshop. We are quickly running out of time, but I want to make sure that we say bravo and thank you for designing this workshop.
My pleasure.
And for performing all of these raves. That was a special treat.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for being such good sports. Thank you for being willing to take risks and be vulnerable. And it really paid off. It was wonderful.
All right. So if everyone could stick around for like 2 minutes, I'm going to turn things over to Susan, who will share some information about our next events.
Right. Our next event is going to take place on Thursday, April 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, where we're going to get to hear from Talia Schaefer, who's going to be speaking to us about communities of care in the writings of Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte. That's going to be fascinating. So when you register for that event, please consider making a donation. We know that not everyone can afford to support this program, which is exactly why we want to keep it free. But if you can, please consider donating at the link on your screen now or when you register for Talia's event. It really makes a huge difference to us.
And just a reminder that tonight, the recording of tonight's workshop will be posted to our website, janeaustenandco.org, and to YouTube very soon after we finish. And if you can't wait until Talia's event, you can view any of our previous programs on the website as well. Alternatively, you could also use that time to work on your submission for the writing contest.
Yes.
As Eric mentioned, you can see the complete rules and instructions on our website. Submissions will be accepted until April 19th, 2024, which is the day after our next event. So thank you to everyone again, especially to Lesley, for such a fun night. And we hope to see everyone back here again on April 18th.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.